will not happen until the one who holds it back is taken out of the way. Then the wicked one will be revealed. But when the Lord Jesus comes, he will kill him with the breath of his mouth and destroy him with his dazzling presence. The wicked one will come with the power of Satan and perform all kinds of false miracles and wonders, and use every kind of wicked deceit on those who will perish. They will perish because they did not welcome the love and truth as so to be saved. And so God sends the power of error to work in them, so that they believe what is false. The result is that all who have not believed the truth, who have taken pleasure in sin, will be condemned. We must thank God at all times for you, brothers, you whom the Lord loves, for God chose you as the first to be saved by the Spirit's power, to make you His holy people, and by your faith in the truth, God called you to this through the good news we preach to you. He called you to possess your share of the glory of our Lord Jesus Christ. So then, our brothers, stand firm and hold on to those truths which we taught you, both in our preaching and in our letter. May our Lord Jesus Christ Himself and God our Father, who loved us and in His grace gave us unfailing courage and a firm hope, encourage you and strengthen you to always do and say what is good.
Thank you, Madeline. ഇന്നത്തെ നമ്മുടെ ഈ സെഷൻ കോർഡിനേറ്റ് ചെയ്യാൻ വേണ്ടി സിബി ആണ് കോർഡിനേറ്റ് ചെയ്യുന്നത്. കാരണം ഈ സൂമും ലൈവും എല്ലാം കൂടെ. സോ ഞാൻ സിബിയെ ഈ സെഷൻ കോർഡിനേറ്റ് ചെയ്യാൻ വേണ്ടി നിങ്ങളുടെ ഏവരുടെയും നാമത്തിൽ ക്ഷണിക്കുകയാണ്. ഞാൻ ഇതിന്റെ ബാക്ക് എല്ലാം ഒക്കെ ഇരിക്കാം. ഒരു റിക്വസ്റ്റ് ഉണ്ട്. ദയവ് ചെയ്ത് നിങ്ങൾ മ്യൂട്ട് ചെയ്തിരിക്കണം. ഞാൻ മ്യൂട്ട് ചെയ്ത എല്ലാവരും. So I request people to go on mute if you are not participating, like if you are not talking or if you are not raising any question, you can stay on mute. Sibi, you can come forward. Sibi, you are on mute.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much, Sunil. I would like to take this opportunity to welcome all of you in the Zoom meeting. Basically, this Zoom meeting is designed with the students in mind. As we all know that it's been a tough year for all of us, and we are more confused than ever about our children's studies. In today's meeting, here, a group of children and a teaching fellow from our own community, they are studying in leading UK universities, and they are talking about what matters to the young people. They are talking about their universities, they are talking about their courses, and they are talking about how we can maintain our orthodox faith while in the university. Lot of things they are talking. So our youngsters can make use of all these things. They can talk to these people, and they can talk to our parents. So we can make use of this Zoom meeting. Basically, finally, the last thing to our children. So you might be going to the university, you might be hearing a lot of things here. Like finally, the choice is yours, where to study, what course you have to be taken. So everything is purely personally your choice. So so let me conclude myself, and I would like to invite the first person. It's Alex Jacob to come and start this program.
Hi, thank you, Sibi Ungle, for that. First of all, can I just thank all of the organizers for inviting me to this. When Sibi Ungle first approached me with this, he asked me, what would be the most useful for the students studying? What would be helpful for them to know? And I know that in this group, there are many students and children that there are some that are going into university and some that are, still in school and are still preparing for their university applications. So I thought, why not take a kind of general approach and talk about how to study in general. So I know many people study in many different ways, and that's fine, and that's totally fine. We hear in schools that, have an active study approach. So, instead of just reading the textbook, do something, create mind maps or create flashcards. it was only later on in my kind of educational career, actually my second year of university, that we actually got a lecture teaching us what are the sort of evidence-based learning methods that we use, and they're, psychologically evidence-backed. So I would like to just share my screen and show one graph. So if you take anything away from this talk, I just want you to remember one graph, which is, let me try to share my screen. It says host disabled screen sharing. Can I share my screen? Is this Sunil uncle? Can I share my screen, please? So I'm just changing my system preferences to allow okay, it's not allowing me now. What I'll do is I'll probably put it on my phone and then show you later. But it's a concept called as the forgetting curve, okay? So some people may have heard this curve, and it refers to something that if you learn something, over time this information decays. So you start to forget the information, and this kind of forgetfulness is sort of follows a sort of exponential decay. So it decays like this. If I could show you my screen, I could have showed it a bit better, but at the moment, I'll have to make do with this. So it follows a kind of exponential decay. So, first day, a lot of the information is forgotten, and then the following days, a little more is forgotten, and then a week later, more is forgotten, and eventually you tend to forget nearly everything you've learned. So the idea behind what psychologists wanted to do is, how can we beat this forgetting curve and kind of prolong our memory so that we retain all the information that we need to retain? So this brings me to the concept of spaced repetition. Again, many of you might have heard of this concept. It's all the vogue in YouTube, and a lot of schools might be discussing this. And the second concept I want to discuss is a concept called active recall. So first, let us go on to spaced repetition. So I just mentioned now how forgetfulness is an exponential decay. Now, say we learned something today, and then say tomorrow we kind of revisit that same thing that we learned. So instead of the curve decaying like this, we bump it up again so that we review the information again, and it's all back in our head. So now the curve is shifted up, and now it's going to decay again. And then say we review it in a week's time again. The curve is shifted up again. And so this means that the exponential decay is a bit less. So this means that we can beat the forgetting curve, and say, a week later or 2 weeks later, a lot of the information that we've learned is not lost. So just to make this clear for you, and I'm sorry I can't actually share this on my screen. I would have to change my system preferences to do that. And that would mean I'll have to quit this Zoom call and then come back on it again. So I'll actually just show it to my phone. This, while my phone is loading, this brings us to the next concept, which is active recall. So how do we actually learn all this information, okay? So I just mentioned, okay, let's review this information, let's learn this information. How do we learn this information? It's all good and well that we, repeat this information, 1 day later, a week later, and then a month later. But do we, students commonly use the methods of highlighting information. Do we highlight information, or do we reread it, or do we summarize the information? Do we take notes, or do we ask questions, or what do we do? What is the best method to learn? And again, as I mentioned at the start of this talk, schools will always mention to the students, learn actively, and the common methods that they give is, do something that requires some kind of cognitive effort, that requires some kind of brain power. So instead of just reading the book passively, do something that actually is a bit more harder for you. And this is actually quite unpopular with students because it means they have to take extra effort, but it means that it's actually a bit more of an effective revision method. And this brings us, again, as I mentioned, to the concept of active recall, which is a evidence-based learning method. And, you know, this is psychologically backed, that the best way to learn information is to try to recall that information. Okay, try to remember that information, question yourself, what did I learn? And try to remember that information again. So this is as opposed to kind of rereading a book and just, you know, passively reading it. Instead, what you could do is write questions. Okay, read a book and then write, what are the key information from this text? What questions that could be asked in the exam, for example, and write those questions. And that could be the only notes that you're taking. And then say, for example, as I said, spaced repetition, tomorrow, look at those questions that you've written and try to answer those questions. So say, for example, if you're learning, I don't know, say you're learning anatomy or something for all the medical students out there, and you're trying to learn the name of a nerve or something that supplies some kind of muscle. So you ask the question, which nerve is supplying so and so muscle? And then you try to think, oh, what did I learn yesterday? Oh yeah, it was the, I don't know, fibular nerve or something. So because of that, you're actually taking the information out of your brain, and that information is actually solidified because of that. And there is actually sort of, this is actually neuroscience backed, because when you learn information, the process of learning is two neurons forming a synapse. So a synapse is just like a connection, okay, between two neurons. And when you learn things, it is just, all it is at a microanatomical level is two neurons forming a connection. And this forgetfulness curve is due to the fact that if you don't reuse those connections, okay, if you don't fire those two neurons again, this connection will kind of break down over time because you're not using it. Okay, if you don't use it, then you'll lose it, as the saying goes. But if you revisit or repeat through a spaced repetition program, tomorrow, if you repeat that same information, and a month later, if you repeat that same information, these neurons will fire again and again. And over time, neurons that fire, the connection will be strengthened. Okay, so that's kind of the neuroscience background of this spaced repetition sort of method. So just to sort of, you know, just to kind of explain this in a bit, kind of summarize this in a bit more simplistic way, is that we usually sort of think of learning as a method of putting stuff into our brain. But if I can kind of, you know, encourage you to think about learning in a different sort of way, in that learning is not stuffing things into your brain, it's sort of taking things out of your brain. And that's the most effective revision method. And it does take a bit more effort because you're actually using more brain power, but just to convince you that this is a better method to use, it will save you time longer term, because if you just kind of reread information, you would have to reread a lot, and that will take a lot of time. So over time, you'll actually have to spend more time studying than if you were to use actually a bit more of a more effective method. Just to kind of convince those people who think that might be more effort. It's actually not more effort, it's actually less effort, because you're spending less time and you're using a more effective method. So saving you time to do things that you enjoy, okay? So that was a sort of a simplified method. That's actually, you know, all I wanted to discuss. I don't want to talk too much because I just wanted you to kind of get through this core message. Use spaced repetition and use active recall. Before I end, maybe if I can just show you, for those who have, you know, computer at home or something, type in the forgetfulness curve, and that should bring you to the curve that I'm talking about. I'm just typing it on my phone. Forgetfulness curve. Okay, there it is. Okay, so I'm not sure if this will display that well. Okay, so that's the curve I was talking about. And I'm sorry I can't show you this on the actual screen sharing, but so once you learn information, that's the first day. And over time, over exponential decay, you're going to forget that information, okay? So that's the first, that's the first line. And then you use spaced repetition. So say next day, you repeat that information again, you bump that curve up again. So that curve is going to decay at a, is going to be shifted upwards. So you forget less information. And then say a week later, you learn that again. So it bumps it up again, and then it decays a bit more slowly. And then say a month later, you review that again, and again, it bumps it up. So over time, do you see that curve there? You're not actually forgetting a lot of information at all. So just if you want to, as I said, one thing you need to remember from this talk is just this curve. Just remember this curve, use spaced repetition and active recall to learn. Okay, so that's all I have for today. If you have any questions, I'm not sure, Sibi if I have time to answer questions now, because I have to actually leave the talk early because I'll be traveling soon.
Okay.
Do I have time to answer questions, or should I just?
Yes, if anyone got some questions, they can you can answer it now.
So if anyone has questions, I think if you could, the best thing to do would use the chat function, okay, right at the bottom of your screen, and type in your question. So I'll wait for a minute to see if anyone have questions. If you want,
or else they can raise your hand. I can unmute you.
Yeah, that would be good. It doesn't have to be questions related to what I was talking about. Anything if you want to talk about regarding going into university, or anything in general.
Yes, yeah. Alex actually you are from Cambridge University, right? You're studying in Cambridge. Yeah. So if any of our students wants to talk about anything about the admissions or something about the courses, you can discuss it right now.
Yeah, anyone who wants to talk about getting into medical school in particular, or any other university, then if you want to ask now, or if you want a private message in the chat, if you don't want if you don't want everyone to know your question, I can just read the private chat and read out the question without naming yourself. So you can use the private chat function as well.
Okay.
Can I ask? Someone else.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, because you study at Cambridge University in medicine, it's quite a competitive course. Do you find when you are studying with, competitive students, is it quite hard to study, or is the pressure like on you from the day one until you graduate, or like how do you cope with that?
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Anne. So that's a really good question. It's actually a lot of students, when they go to university, they actually feel a lot of sort of a thing called as imposter syndrome, where they compare themselves to others and they see that everyone else is doing a lot better than them. They're studying more than them. They can remember things more than them. And they feel like they got into the university by accident, or, it was a sort of admission flaw that they got into the university. But the way to combat this imposter syndrome is to know that actually, psychologists will talk about this, psychiatrists will talk about this, to know that actually a lot of people feel this imposter syndrome and also is comparing themselves to each other. So everyone is comparing themselves to each other and thinking that everyone else is better than them. The truth is that everyone is just actually, to use a common saying, is actually just winging it. And no one actually has everything figured out. So it's to just make sure, when anyone asks me this question, a lot of, budding medical students ask me about how do you cope up with the pressure of knowing your friends, are doing better than you or anything. And I use this analogy, is that if you imagine a horse race, or, any kind of race, what they do is that they always cover the horse's eyes in the side like this, okay? They wear a sort of, I'm not sure what it is, but some kind of device to cover the side vision of the horses. And that is to stop the horses from getting distracted by the other horses around them. Because if they see, while they're running the race and they see the other horses on the other tracks, they sort of go off course. So to prevent this and to just focus on their goal, which is in front of them, they put this kind of side vision to blur their vision. So this is trying to get at the fact that if you have a goal, it's best not to, focus too much on, don't worry about what others are doing. everyone studies at their own pace. Everyone has their own method of studying. So don't worry about, if so-and-so is doing so-and-so, or they're getting this marks or anything. If you have a goal, you're the only competition that you have. You're just trying to better yourself, and just focus on yourself. Don't focus on beating other people or anything, because in the end, that's not really what matters. Did that answer your question, Nancy? Or
yeah, yes, it did. Yes, it did. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Actually, all the people are actually from our community. We are chosen few of the resources from our own community. So please feel free to talk to your doubts and everything to it's our own people. In case if we are not able to ask you right now, because since it's an our own community, I would like to tell something about Alex's parents also. They are from London. They are from Indian Orthodox Church, London Parish, and his father is Mr. Jacob Alexander, and mother is Bina. So I thought of, since it's our own community, so just to introduce them also to all of you. So anyway, thank you, Alex, for all the scientific രീതിയിൽ നമ്മുടെ മെമ്മറിയെ പറ്റിയൊക്കെ പറഞ്ഞു കൊടുത്തതിനകത്ത് വളരെ നന്ദി. So shall we go to the other next participant? Okay, next one is Merlin.
Merlin, yes.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay,
so
hi everyone.
Merlin's topic you don't know.
Okay, so the topic given to me is how to sustain faith while we're at university. So first of all, hi everyone, my name is Merlin and I'm going into my second year of university this year. So I would like to start off by saying is the advice that was given to me. So is to take a Bible with you, because since a young age, we've been taught in Sunday school through our parents, through our teachers, you need to read the Bible every day. You need to pray every day. So, that is an advice you should follow throughout your life. So even though you might be moving away to a new place, it is something that you need to follow. So, it doesn't have to be long. Just before you go to bed, 10 minutes. It doesn't take long to read a passage. So I think that's one of the most important things that we can do in order to help us strengthen our faith as well as keep our faith stable. And another thing I would suggest is to try and research beforehand if there are any Orthodox churches near your university. This would actually help, because we've been grown in Orthodox faith. So to see the Orthodox Mass would actually help us. However, if that is not possible, I would try and suggest to see if there are any churches near your university. It could be Catholic, or it could be just of another denomination, as long as it is a church, because we know before the corona it was a norm for us to go to church every single Sunday. However, nowadays it has become a privilege. So if you get the opportunity, I would say to definitely go to church Sunday, every Sunday if you can. Also, I think one of the things I thought as well before going to university was, what if people judge me if I go to church? What if they see me praying? What if they see me go in church? How would people react? But I think one of the things I've learned was that when I actually went inside the church, I was blessed to have a church right next to my university. So I used to go to that church. And when I actually went to the church for the first time, I realized that there was a lot of other students like me from different backgrounds, from different ethnicities, and they were actually so interested in coming to church as well. And there's actually a lot more, there's so many people who actually wants to go to church. And when you go in midst of that, you just forget everything about people judging you, because you realize there are other people like you who wants to see the Mass, who wants to do confession, who wants to take Qurbana, So I would say don't think about people judging you, because at the end of the day, it's your belief. It's what you've been taught. It's what you've been practicing. So, just continue with your faith, continue going to church, continue praying. You don't need to really think about what others are thinking about you. Yeah, so I would say definitely go church if you can. Also, in universities, what they offer is they offer societies. So there's nearly society for everything. There's educational, there's extracurricular activities. So there would definitely be faith societies as well. It might not be per se an Orthodox society, but there would be Christian societies available in university. So if you can, try and join those, because by doing so, you're meeting people. First of all, you're meeting new people, you're making new friends. You're also meeting people with similar beliefs. So, by engaging with them, it would help to strengthen your belief a bit more. And say there are no Orthodox people in that society, you can actually then help and understand them what Orthodox faith is about, what you've been practicing. So it would actually help them to understand what Orthodoxy is. And I think it would actually help to strengthen your belief a bit more, because you're explaining to them what your faith is, and it's helping you understand a bit more about what your faith is. So yeah, I would say join societies if you can. And usually you think that, people don't really care about religion, they're not really that interested in it. But actually, from my experience, what I've learned is that if you firmly believe in your religion, then they're actually interested to know why you believe that much in your religion, why you believe in God so much, especially atheists, because since university is a big place, you meet a lot of different people. So you're definitely going to meet atheists as well. So, they might want to argue with you, I don't think God exists. I think it's just Big Bang Theory and all that. But, by you explaining your faith to them, they might not completely agree with you, but I think they kind of understand where you're coming from, and it will actually help you a lot as well throughout your university journey. So I think that's all I have to say about, from my experience, how you can help and sustain your faith while you're at university. I hope it helped everyone, and if anyone has any questions, you'll feel free to ask.
Thank you, Merlin. Actually, it's a very interesting subject. നമ്മുടെ പേരൻസിനും ഒക്കെ ഇൻട്രസ്റ്റ് ആയിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു സബ്ജക്റ്റ് ആയത്. So if any of our parents or our people who wants to compliment to Merlin, now it would be grateful for other children also.
It was a good guidance to all the university students, Maul. Very good.
Anyone else? Actually,
hello.
Yes.
I'm really grateful for both Merlin and Alex. I think they've done an excellent talk. And I'm really impressed, Merlin, you are keeping your faith. And we want all of our children to keep the faith and move on in their life. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Shall we move to our third person? That is Ansu. Ansu is from Aberdeen St. Thomas Church. I'm inviting Ansu to cover your session.
Yes, yes.
Thank you, Uncle. So hi everyone, my name is Ansu, as Uncle said, and I'm from St. Thomas IUC in Aberdeen. I'm a second year medical student here at the University of Aberdeen. The previous speakers, both Merlin and Alex, have done such a fantastic job already, and I really do hope that my talk can be as equally informative as theirs. So today I believe we have students from a wide range of ages. So I will be giving a general walkthrough of the application process as it was for me. But if you have questions that are more specific, then please do just contact me directly. So I think I've split my talk into subsections. So I'll talk briefly about school subjects and grades, UCAT, personal statement, interview, and then finish off with some general tips. So firstly, school subjects are your grades. The specific subjects that each university asks for will be slightly different. And I would say the best place to keep updated with this would be the UCAS website or the individual university's website. But having said that, the general trend is that most universities ask for biology, chemistry, and either maths or physics for A-level. I would say your aim should be to get the maximum score that you can in your school subjects, because as you'll see later on in the talk, I would say there's a greater element of uncertainty in your UCAT and your interview than say your A-levels. I know the current with COVID and things, it's a bit different, but definitely try and do as well as you can in your exams. My tip would be to work steadily throughout the year and to definitely strike a balance. So even if that does mean making a few sacrifices. Some universities do ask for your GCSEs. I know that Edinburgh did for me, but that was when Edinburgh didn't do interviews. But again, with these things, stay updated by looking on their website. The next part of the application was the UCAT. So the UCAT is an aptitude test. Unlike your A-levels, you're learning content and then you're answering questions on it. But for the UCAT, there is no content to learn, but it's more of a skill that you develop. So as with any skill, practice makes perfect. There are two resources that I used to prepare for the UCAT. The first one was this book called 1,250 UKCAT questions. So basically it goes through different types of questions that you may be asked, and it's got different approaches to the question. The second resource that I used was an online platform called Medify. So this will get you used to answering questions on the computer, because on the day of your exam, it's not pen and paper, it is computerized. My tips for the UKCAT would be to practice little but often. So for example, doing say 2 hours a day for like 5 or 6 weeks is much better than trying to cram for, I don't know, 4 hours a day the last 2 weeks of your exam. It's really not something that you can cram for. You do need to practice. A tip that I received, but I didn't make full use of, was do some preparation in the summer break after your GCSEs. And finally, I would say to apply to universities based on your UKCAT. So if you have a comfortable score, say, apply to the universities, apply to your favorite universities, and you can expect an interview from them. But if you're in the average zone, or if you are slightly worried, then you should apply to universities that interview a large amount of people. So for example, I know that the Dundee University, when I applied, they would, so once you're invited for interview, they don't look at your UKCAT score or your grades. So their final offers are solely based on your interview score. But here at Aberdeen, their final offers are based on each part of the application. So they will look at your grades, your UKCAT, and I think the interview is like 50%, for 50% of the final score. So definitely apply strategically, and you will find information about the selection process for each university on their website. You might have to do a bit of digging around, but just look through it thoroughly. The next part of the application is the personal statement. So the way I went about doing it, again, there will be different ways. I made a list of all the work experiences that I had done, and then everything that I had learned at each of my work experiences, so a reflection on it. And then I made a list of all the extracurricular activities that I did, and I tried to link my extracurricular activities and some of the skills that I developed to what I had seen at the work experience. So for example, you were doing work experience at a GP practice, and you saw that the GP had to work with various healthcare professionals to look after the patient's needs. So then you would say, well, I've been developing my team working skills by being a committed member of a sports team, for example, basketball or something. So that's a good structure to use, and I would say use that structure in your interview as well. So only the University of Edinburgh marked my personal statement. All the other universities use the personal statement as something to ask you more questions about at the interview. So definitely write a good personal statement, but I wouldn't get too worried about it. In your first draft, write down everything that you can think of. Write down everything that you love about medicine, and then send it to teachers, doctors, medical students, and then slowly start taking things out. And then the final stage of the application process was the interview. So essentially, from your grades and the UK CAT, the universities know that you're a clever person, but now what they want to know is, how good your communication skills are. So can you talk to a patient? I would say we all have a basic communication skills. We can, we know ourselves more than the interviewer does. So it should be a fairly easy process, but I think when the pressure is on, it might be that we're not always good at thinking on our feet. So I would do some preparation for it. I use this book called Medical School Interviews, but again, there'll be different books, just like for the UK CAT, you'll find different things in bookstores. But I used the book to brainstorm different answers for typical questions. I would just bullet point them, and then I practiced it with myself, and then with doctors, medical students, some teachers. And our school also did mock MMIs. Just make the most of every opportunity and treat it like it's your real interview. On the day of your interview, just be yourself, and there will be questions that you haven't practiced for, but I think honestly, you will surprise yourself with what you can come up with. And if you practice the typical questions, you'll be able to mold your answers so that you can pretty much answer every question. So finishing off, my few general tips, I would say decide early on if you want to do medicine. Don't wait for your grades to come. Set your heart on it if you think medicine is for you, and just go for it. Because the earlier you decide, the more time you have to prepare for your interview. So for example, I knew quite early on, and after my GCSEs or my National 5s, when I went to India, I was able to do some work experience at Paramila Hospital. And that's because I knew quite early on that I wanted to do it. So prepare yourself. The second tip I'd say is that every bit of the application, just give it your best and give the rest to God, and He'll definitely take care of it. That's my talk. I hope that's been useful. And as I said, if you have any questions relating to anything in particular, please do get in touch. I can leave my contact details in the chat, and please ask questions. Oh, and you can also ask questions now.
Any question to Ansu? Okay. Those who doesn't know Ansu is from St. Thomas Indian Orthodox Church, Aberdeen. Ansu's parents' name Saji. Saji Palliyude trust secretary aanu. Ammയുടെ പേര് ലിസി അല്ലേ Ansu? തെറ്റാണെങ്കിൽ correct ചെയ്യണേ.
No, it's correct.
Okay, അതാണ് Ansu's details. I think to confirm. Yeah, go on. Anybody have any questions?
Okay, one more compliment.
It can be questions about, yeah?
I mean, I have a question. It's about personal, I mean, you mentioned about personal statement making an impact in the whole application process. So what I've noticed is a lot of the personal statements are quite tailored by parents. So the actual genuineness of an application is probably masked. Do you think the universities go at length, taking out, the genuine natures from the ones which are tailored versus, the actual ones? Or do you think, you have to spend because I've seen parents, what they do is they go through a lot of process of, doing the personal statement, at your age, I doubt, some of the personal statements I've seen, they can't come, it needs a little bit more thought. So what is your opinion about, how should you tailor a personal statement?
Okay. So the way I went about writing my personal statement, I made a first draft and I did get people to comment on it and ask for people's opinions basically. But even the people that did give me feedback, they wouldn't give their own words or say specific things to change in the personal statement. It was more of like an idea, something for me to consider, and then nobody told me exactly what to write in it. So if you know what I'm saying, it was essentially my own words. And I think universities, like you said, do have an idea of that, and that's probably most likely why that most universities don't mark personal statements as per se. They all the universities that I applied to anyway, apart from Edinburgh, they use the personal statement to ask you more questions. So if you said you did a particular sport, if you had achieved something, then they would question you about it. I think they are aware of it, and that's probably why they don't mark it as you say.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. നമ്മുടെ നെക്സ്റ്റ് പാർട്ടിസിപ്പന്റ് ഹന്ന ബൾഗേറിയ ആണ് ജോയിൻ ചെയ്യേണ്ടത്. I still doubt I don't think she's there. Hannah, if you are there, can you please raise your hand? I can't find you from the list. Okay, in that case, we may have to skip. We are really sorry for that. We are going to our fourth, that is Dr. Steffi Thomas. Sibi, okay, we are coming directly to, because one of our participants, she has not joined. Doctor, you can start now. I think you may have to cover the two topics as you are from Ireland, and you may have to cover the topic which Hannah is supposed to cover. If you can, that will be good. Thank you.
Yes. Sorry, can I know what Hannah was talking about? I can just give a glimpse, maybe.
Definitely.
In the meantime, I'll do a screen share. So on the topic that I wanted to talk about, actually. So I hope everyone can see the slides.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Can I start?
Yes, please.
Yeah, okay. Hi, I'm Steffi, and I've been teaching chemistry here in Trinity College Dublin. So I'll quickly give a glimpse on how to study effectively once you come into a university level. Okay, so when you're in school, you actually do the studies, but you may most probably are by hearting everything. You may not. You might stick to a routine that you're used to, okay? And you might discover some techniques that you like. For example, you like getting up in the morning and studying, for example, or some of you might like to stay late in the night. So it depends on the time. So you know what is better for you. Sometimes people use music as a background to help them to study. So it's just helping you. You have found a couple of methods that actually help you to study. But even if you don't have any, don't worry, because everyone has their own techniques of how to study. Okay, so but once you come into university, it all changes. Okay, so once you come into college, it's not about just by hearting everything. You need to understand what's happening. Okay, so it will be a course that you really like and you concentrate on. So make sure that you understand, because that's your life. That's your future going to be, whatever the course is, that's your future. So make sure that you understand what the lecturer is saying. Make sure that you write down notes, and you most probably won't be doing a lot of essays or anything, but you will do. I'm not saying you won't do, but it won't be as that you have done in school, for example. Make sure that you're always engaging also when you're in a university level. Okay, so what are the tips? Just a couple of tips that I have to for you to study effectively. Okay, the first one is you need to know what you need to study. For example, you have a module, okay? So most of the colleges usually have a module descriptor. So that means it actually outlines what all you need to study, what all topics are being taught by the lecturers, etc. And it might also contain what books you can use to read. So that actually helps you, for example, to know what are the main specific topics that you need to focus on. And that will be the main learning outcomes. Okay, and the module descriptor also helps you to see what type of exams you might be having at the during the course. So it changes over the year. So if you're in a first year, it might be different from what you might have in a third year exam. In the first year, most probably you might have a couple of continuous assessments, maybe you might have an end of semester exam. But as you go to the third or the fourth year, you might see the system changes, the exam style changes. So you need to, so all the module descriptor actually helps you to see what type of exams you might have during that term, for example. Okay, so this also helps you to to allocate different times to spend on the studying process. Okay, so for example, let's say you have a continuous assessment that's for 20% and your main exam will be 80%. So make sure that you spend a lot of time on the main exam that's contributing to the main portion of your mark, and don't spend a month or so just on the continuous assessment. Just spend a good amount of time just for that continuous assessment, but mainly concentrate on the exams towards the end. Okay, so, and also make sure that you know when the exams are due. For example, the lecturers usually tell you when you can expect an exam, for example, maybe, or a continuous assessment or a class test. So make sure that you know when these are going to happen, or talk to your lecturers also. So just get an idea of what you need to study early on itself. The second one is manage your time. So make sure that you look at your timetable. You might have a lecture in the morning, and the next lecture might be in the afternoon. So you might have 2 or 3 hours in the in between. Make for example, make use of it. Go to the library maybe and write down a timetable and fill in the gap and say that maybe I'll study for the 2 hours in between these lectures, and I will study a specific topic. If you have something on your mind, write it down on a calendar, for example. Also, so just write it down. So you might have an assignment coming up or an exam coming up soon. So write all that down onto that calendar, and when that comes up, you go down, concentrate on that, and write and try to stick to your timetable. That actually helps you to keep moving through your coursework, so you're not left behind with any module. And if you find it difficult, for example, to go ahead with that time, sit down and revise that timetable. Make sure that you go through it, and maybe you need to move around some couple of things that you have already planned, but make sure that you move it around and stick to the timetable. Make sure that you stick to it and manage your time. And also most of the campuses also provide different student support centers. So make sure that if you have difficulty, make use of them, go to them, and they will help you with anything that you need regarding the studying process. Okay. The third point will be when you go for a lecture, just don't sit during the lecture and just listen. Okay, try and write down notes during that time. Okay, so make sure that before you go for the lecture that you have gone through all the notes from the previous lecture. So it actually just jogs your memory, as Alex from the first talk told you, that it just refreshes your memory, so you know what the lecturer is going to talk to you next. So and also most of the lecturers actually put up the notes online before the lecture, so make sure you print it out so you have it in your hand, so you can write notes on it maybe, and just have a glance through the lectures just to see what the lecturer is going to teach you today. So it actually helps you to connect all the dots during that lectures. Okay, and make sure that you actively take notes during a lecture. That actually helps you, because your lecture notes might not contain all the topics. The lecturer might talk also during that time. So they will put up or put down a lot of notes when they are talking. So make sure that you write it down. Actually writing it down helps you rather than typing on a computer or iPad. I have found like writing the notes down, but just don't write all the time. Listen and take down just the important points. Okay, so just keep active. And once you finish that lecture, go back and just go over the material. Just create a summary. Try to connect the dot from the previous lecture and how it connects through all the 2 or 3 lectures from before it, maybe, for example. Okay, so just try to actively engage during the lecture. So the fourth will be smart when you're studying. Okay, so when you as I said before, like when you sit down to study, just write down all the list that what you need to study. Maybe you have 5 topics in your mind that you need to do, but you have just an hour. So what you need to do is, okay, I can only finish these 2 topics. So just do those 2. Don't try to cram everything into that 1 hour. So be smart about it and realize that you don't have time to do all of the things that you had on your list. Do it systematically and make sure that you give enough time for each of the list to-do list things you have on it there. Okay, so and I just want to say that you use a smart approach that's specific and measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. So that's something that I already said. So make sure that you have the set topics and make sure that you give enough time for it rather than cramming everything into it, and be realistic about it. Okay, and once you have made that list, divide your time into a 2-hour period. For example, if you have a 2-hour period, for example, make sure that you study for the 25 minutes and give yourself a break before going into the next topic. Okay, give a small break before you go on. And maybe, as we said before, we usually use textbooks and we like to read through it. And what we do is we get a highlight pen and we just start highlighting everything, right? So don't do that. At the end, what you'll be looking will be a book that's colored. That's it. Yeah. So make sure that you just highlight the main key points. Maybe take a book and write down just the main points that's on that book rather than highlighting everything. Okay. And once you finish that topic, maybe do a small summary. Just write down a small summary of what all you have studied during that period of time. Okay, so make sure that you're really engaged. You're just not passively doing it, and while just highlighting everything you see, make sure to just highlight the main topics that you see and write down that actually helps you, that actually sticks to your memory. Okay, for example, maybe make sure that you start with the difficult material first, and maybe keep something that's a bit more easier at the end, because towards the end you will get tired. So usually try to do any difficult topic. It will be hard, but start off with that and it actually helps you to do it. Okay, so the fifth is maybe join or start a study group. Okay, so most of the university students usually does that, have a study group, but it doesn't help everyone. For example, myself, I like to sit alone and study. So if you are a person who likes to talk through another you're one of your friends maybe and study through it, use that. Make a study group. So have a conversation about it, and maybe you decide on a topic and divide that topic between yourself and your friends. And maybe you study a topic, your friends study another topic, and you come together and exchange it with them. So at the same time, you're listening from them and you're studying, and you're also studying another topic and you are presenting it to another person. That means it sticks to in your memory more also. So it's kind of like teaching back, let's say. So you're teaching your friends and it actually sticks in your memory. So by joining a study group, it actually helps you. So if you're a person who likes to sit alone and study, do that. Do not, I won't say do not go, give it a try if you are interested. But see if it helps or not. That's all I'm saying. Okay. So finally, the final point I would just say is use the old exam papers. So they are all available online, and I would say don't go back 7-8 years or anything like that. Just go back 3-4 years, let's say. And because the content in a module always it always changes. So if you take an old exam paper and you're trying to do it and you cannot answer it, and you might get scared saying, okay, I haven't studied enough. it's not that, maybe the module content has changed. Okay, so make sure they just go back 2-3 years and sit down and try to do that question paper. And if you have struggle trying to answer that, email your lecturer, tell them I cannot answer this, or most of the lecturers actually tell you if you they actually help you. So go down to them maybe and sit through them with them and see where you have made a mistake, for example, if there is, and understand how to answer that question. And each lecturers have their own ways to see how the answers should be presented in an exam. So make sure you get an idea from them to see what do they expect from you during an exam from your answers. Okay, so before I finish, just make sure that you get enough sleep. So most people just try to sit all night and try and study. Don't do that. Make sure you get enough sleep. If you lack sleep, it will affect your concentration and your energy levels and your memory if you're going for exams. So make sure that you get enough sleep and avoid staying up all night just before an exam. Okay, so when you're doing any studies, avoid any distraction. Make sure you keep your phone away, keep all your social media and TV away from you. Make sure that you give the time just for study. And again, don't focus on one subject, just one module. Keep it rotating so that you are engaged. Okay, so if you study one module for a long time, you can get bored of it. So keep it rotating. And again, as Alex said before, review the material periodically, come back, read it again, go back a week later and read it again. So it just make sure that you're going through that topic again and again, so it just jogs up in your memory. Okay? So again, as I've already mentioned this, make sure that when you're going in a lecture, try to take notes by hand, so you're actually writing and it actually sticks in your memory a bit more. And try after each lecture, sit down and read through the lecture materials and connect to what you're learning to what you have already known. So try connect all the dots during a lecture. So again, just finish and make sure that you exercise and eat healthy also. Okay, so just before I finish, study smart and not harder. Okay, so thanks a lot, and that's all from me. All right.
Any questions, Dr. Steffi Thomas? If you can ask, or you can... Okay. Don't think any question is there. Doctor, your profession is teaching. She's from Trinity College of Dublin, Ireland, and she's working in the chemistry department. Doctor, you're from the Dublin Church, right?
Yes, right? Yeah, I am. Yeah, yeah.
Thank you. Okay, CB. CB, you can conclude. I think if you don't have the question,
yes,
you can conclude this session now. Yes.
Yes, Dr. Steffi, thank you very much. Thank you for your
the opportunity also. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me conclude, like, when just want to just say one thing from my side, like when children take up the degree, when they are going to take the degree from the university, please make sure that, when they are going to thorough research on what they are going to study and, how they are going to study, and on when, like, what you call, how you will learn, and before that, if you are going to take up a thorough study, it would be beneficial for them. Otherwise, like most of the people, they take up a degree in one subject and they end up in doing a job in something else actually. So it's my, like, that would be a before we are going to take up a degree, we need to do personally that we need to have a personal knowledge on that one.
Thank you, CB. Thank you much. And we are, I think, approaching the end of this session. And the next, as we always do, the end of the session prayer. For this time, we invite Jacob Uncle for doing our prayer to conclude the session.
Hello, CB.
Yes.
ഞാനൊരു കാര്യം ഒന്ന് പറയാൻ വേണ്ടിയായിരുന്നു. ഞാൻ പഠിച്ചപ്പോൾ ഞങ്ങളൊക്കെ ഇവിടെ വരുമ്പോൾ കമ്പ്യൂട്ടറിന്റെ പേര് കേട്ടിട്ടേ ഉള്ളൂ ഇവിടെ നമ്മുടെ നാട്ടിലൊക്കെ. അത് കഴിഞ്ഞ് ഇവിടെ വന്ന് നമ്മൾ ഹോസ്പിറ്റലിൽ നിന്ന് ഓരോ യൂണിവേഴ്സിറ്റിയിൽ പഠിക്കാൻ വിടുമ്പോൾ നമ്മളൊക്കെ ഒരു കൈ കൊണ്ട് ഒരു ലെറ്ററെ കുത്തിവെച്ച് സ്ക്രീനെ നോക്കും. അപ്പോഴന്ന് എൻ്റെ കൂടെ പഠിക്കുന്ന പിള്ളേരൊക്കെ കൊച്ചു പിള്ളേരായിരുന്നു. അവരൊക്കെ ക്രീഡാന്നടിക്കുമ്പോൾ നമ്മൾ വിചാരിക്കുന്നത് എന്തൊരു അതിശയമാണ്. ബട്ട് ഹോസ്പിറ്റലിൽ നിന്ന് നമ്മൾ ഇടയ്ക്കൊക്കെ ഇങ്ങനെ കോഴ്സിനൊക്കെ വിടും. But my only objective was, I'm going to be reaching with you. But now I'm proud to say I can type, I can handle computer with any other youngsters. So only advice I want to say is, think in your mind, I'm going to do it, I'll do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, I'll leave you 1 minute. Just ഓക്കെ, അടുത്ത നമുക്ക് പ്രാർത്ഥനയാണ്. നമുക്ക് സെഷൻ കൺക്ലൂഡ് ചെയ്യാം. ഐ മേ ഇൻവൈറ്റ് ജേക്കബ് മുരിങ്ങൽ അങ്കിൾ ടു ഡു അവർ പ്രയർ ഫോർ us.
താങ്ക് യു. പ്രാർത്ഥിക്കാം. പിതാവിനും പുത്രനും പരിശുദ്ധനും സ്തുതി, ആദ്യം തന്നെ ആമേൻ. ഞങ്ങളെ അളവറ്റ് സ്നേഹിക്കുന്ന ഞങ്ങളുടെ ദൈവമേ സ്വർഗീയ പിതാവേ, ഈ കർത്ത ദിവസമായി ഞങ്ങളങ്ങ് സ്തുതിക്കുന്നു, സ്തോത്രം ചെയ്യുന്നു. ഈ മനോഹരമായ സാധനത്തിലെ ഓർത്ത് ഞങ്ങളങ്ങ് സ്തുതിക്കുന്നു. ഞങ്ങളുടെ കുഞ്ഞുങ്ങളോടൊപ്പം തിരുസലിലേക്ക് കടന്നു വന്ന് ഞങ്ങളുടെ തലകളെ അതിൽ മുമ്പാകെ ഉണക്കിയിരിക്കുന്നു. കുഞ്ഞുങ്ങളെ ഓരോരുത്തരെയും അവിടുത്തെ തൃക്കൺ പാർത്ത് ശക്തി നിറഞ്ഞ അവിടുത്തെ കാര്യങ്ങൾ നീട്ടി അനുഗ്രഹിക്കുകയും തുടരുകയും ചെയ്യണം, അപേക്ഷിക്കുകയും പ്രാർത്ഥിക്കുകയും ചെയ്യാവുന്നു. അവരുടെ ജീവിതത്തിലെ ആവശ്യങ്ങളും ഭാരങ്ങളുമായി അവർ തിരുമുമ്പാകെ വന്നിരിക്കുന്നു. അവരെ വെറും കൈയോടെ അവിടുന്ന് മടക്കി അയക്കരുതേ. അവരുടെ ജീവിതത്തിലെ എല്ലാ നല്ല ആഗ്രഹങ്ങളെയും അവിടുന്ന് കാണുകയും അതിനെ അവിടുന്ന് അംഗീകരിക്കുകയും അനുഗ്രഹിക്കുകയും ചെയ്യണം, അപേക്ഷിക്കുകയും പ്രാർത്ഥിക്കുകയും ചെയ്യാവുന്നു. മാതാപിതാക്കളുടെയോ കുഞ്ഞുങ്ങളുടെയോ ജീവിതത്തിൽ വരുന്ന ഭാരങ്ങളും പ്രയാസങ്ങളും പാപങ്ങളും ഒന്നും അവിടുന്ന് ഓർമ്മ വയ്ക്കാതെ അവിടുത്തെ കരുണയിൻ പ്രകാരം കുഞ്ഞുങ്ങളോട് അവിടുന്ന് ഇടപെടുകയും അവരുടെ ജീവിതത്തെ അംഗീകരിക്കുകയും ചെയ്യണം, അപേക്ഷിക്കുകയും പ്രാർത്ഥിക്കുകയും ചെയ്യാവുന്നു. ജീവിതത്തിൽ എന്ത് തിരഞ്ഞെടുക്കണമെന്ന് അവിടുത്തെ പരിശുദ്ധാത്മാവ് മുഖാന്തരം അവർക്കും പറഞ്ഞു കൊടുക്കുകയും നല്ല തീരുമാനം എടുക്കുവാൻ തൊക്കെ അവരെ സഹായിക്കുകയും ശക്തിപ്പെടുകയും ചെയ്യണം, അപേക്ഷിക്കുകയും പ്രാർത്ഥിക്കുകയും ചെയ്യാവുന്നു. അവരെവിടെയാവുന്നോ ഏതവസ്ഥയിലാവുന്നോ അവിടെയൊക്കെയും അവിടുത്തെ സാന്നിധ്യം അവർ കൂടെ ഇരിക്കാൻ തക്കവണ്ണം കർത്താവിന്റെ കൃപ അവരെ നിറക്കുന്നത് അപേക്ഷിക്കുന്നു, പ്രാർത്ഥിക്കുന്നു. അവിടുത്തെ തിരകയിൽ അവരെ മറക്കുകയും പരിപാലിക്കുകയും ചെയ്യുമാറാണമേ. അവരുടെ യാത്രാവേളകളിലും പഠന സമയങ്ങളിലും കർത്താവെ അവിടുത്തെ സാന്നിധ്യം കൂടെ ഇരിക്കണമേ. അവർ ചെന്ന് ചേരുന്ന സ്ഥലങ്ങളൊക്കെയും അവിടുത്തെ സാന്നിധ്യം അറിയുന്ന മക്കളായി ജീവിപ്പാനും അങ്ങയുടെ സുവിശേഷം പ്രചരിപ്പിക്കുന്ന മക്കളായി തീരുവാനൊക്കെ അവർ സഹായിക്കണം, അപേക്ഷിക്കുന്നു, പ്രാർത്ഥിക്കുന്നു. അവരുടെ ബുദ്ധി അവിടുന്ന് പ്രകാശിപ്പിക്കണമേ. അവരുടെ മനസ്സിനെ അവിടുത്തെ വെളിച്ചം നിറയ്ക്കണമേ. ജീവിതയാത്രയിൽ അങ്ങയെ ഉപേക്ഷിച്ച് ഈ ലോകത്തെ തിരഞ്ഞെടുക്കാൻ തൊക്കെ കുഞ്ഞുങ്ങളുടെ മനസ്സിലേക്ക് ഈ ലോകം കടന്നു വരുവാനിടയാകാതിരിക്കാൻ അവിടുത്തെ പരിശുദ്ധാത്മാവും അവിടുത്തെ മാലാഖന്മാരും കുഞ്ഞുങ്ങളോടൊപ്പം എപ്പോഴും ഉണ്ടായിരിക്കാൻ അപേക്ഷിക്കുകയും പ്രാർത്ഥിക്കുകയും ചെയ്യുന്നു. ജീവിതത്തിൽ എല്ലാ കുറവും കുറ്റം പ്രശ്നമൊക്കെ അപേക്ഷിക്കുന്നു, പ്രാർത്ഥിക്കുന്നു. കുഞ്ഞുങ്ങളെയും അവർ പഠിക്കുന്ന സ്ഥാപനങ്ങളെയും അവരെ പഠിപ്പിക്കുന്നവരെ ഓർത്ത് പ്രത്യേകം പ്രാർത്ഥിക്കാവുന്നു. വേണ്ട എല്ലാവിധമായ നല്ല സാഹചര്യം ഒരുക്കൂട്ട് തമ്പുരാന്റെ കരുണയും കൃപയും അവർ നയിക്കുകയും ജീവിതത്തിൽ അവർ ഉദ്ദേശിക്കുന്ന നല്ല സ്ഥാനങ്ങൾ എത്തിച്ചുവാൻ തൊക്കെ അവരെ അനുഗ്രഹിക്കുകയും ചെയ്യുന്ന അപേക്ഷിക്കുന്നത് പ്രാർത്ഥിക്കുന്നു. എല്ലാം ഈ സംബ്രായ വലുതാമത്തെ തിരുസലിലേക്ക് സമർപ്പിക്കുന്നു. കരുണയോടെ കേൾക്കണമേ. ആമേൻ. സ്വർഗ്ഗസ്ഥനായ ഞങ്ങളുടെ പിതാവേ,
നിന്റെ നാമം പരിശുദ്ധമാക്കപ്പെടണമേ. നിന്റെ രാജ്യം വരണമേ. നിന്റെ ഇഷ്ടം സ്വർഗ്ഗത്തിലെ പോലെ ഭൂമിയിലും ആകണമേ. ഞങ്ങൾക്ക് ആവശ്യമുള്ള അപ്പം ഞങ്ങൾക്ക് തരണമേ. ഞങ്ങളുടെ പോലെ ഞങ്ങളുടെ പരീക്ഷയിലേക്ക് ഞങ്ങളെ പ്രവേശിപ്പിക്കരുതേ, ഞങ്ങളുടെ ദുഷ്ടം ഞങ്ങളെ രക്ഷപ്പെടണമേ. എന്തുകൊണ്ടാണ് രാജ്യശക്തിയും
നിറഞ്ഞ മറിയമേ, അങ്ങക്ക് സമാധാനം.
കർത്താവിനോടുകൂടെ സ്ത്രീകളിൽ നീ വാഴ്ത്തപ്പെട്ടവളാകുന്നു. ഫലമായി നമ്മുടെ കർത്താവ് വാഴ്ത്തപ്പെട്ടവനാകുന്നു.
താങ്ക് യു ജേക്കബ് അങ്കിൾ. അപ്പൊ നമ്മുടെ സെഷൻ ഒഫീഷ്യലി ഓവർ ആയിരിക്കുകയാണ്. ഞാൻ സൂം ഒരു 10 മിനിറ്റ് ഓളം ഞാൻ ഓപ്പൺ ചെയ്തിട്ടേക്കാം. അപ്പം ഇത് ലോക്ക്ഡൌൺ ടൈം ആണല്ലോ, നിങ്ങൾക്ക് അങ്ങോട്ടും ഇങ്ങോട്ടും. അതുപോലെ തന്നെ താങ്ക് യു ഫോർ ഓൾ പാർട്ടിസിപ്പൻസ്. അൻസു, ജോസ്, അതേപോലെ ഡോക്ടർ സ്റ്റെഫി. ഐ തിങ്ക് ഹന്ന ജോയിൻ ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റിയില്ല. വി വിൽ കം അപ്പ് വിത്ത് അനദർ സെഷൻ ഫോർ ദാറ്റ് പർട്ടിക്കുലർ ടോപ്പിക്. ആൻഡ് ഞങ്ങൾ ഇതേപോലെ കുറെ പ്ലാൻ ചെയ്യുന്നുണ്ട്. So, Sibi, if you want to tell us something.
Thank you, Ansu. Ansu, thank you very much. Thank you.
No, thank you for the opportunity to speak to so many people. So, thank you.
And again, നമ്മുടെ മെർലിന്റെ പേരൻസിനെ പറ്റി ഒരു വാക്ക് പറഞ്ഞില്ല. മെർലിന്റെ പേരൻസിന്റെ പേര് റോയ് തോമസ് ആൻഡ് ജോയ്സ്. They are also from London.
And I think Dr. Steffi is also there. I think, yeah. Thank you, doctor. Yeah. അപ്പം നിങ്ങൾക്ക് ഞങ്ങൾ ഇങ്ങനെയുള്ള കുറേ കാര്യങ്ങൾ പ്ലാൻ ചെയ്യുന്നുണ്ട് നമ്മുടെ കമ്മ്യൂണിറ്റിക്ക് ഉപയോഗപ്രദമായിട്ടുള്ളത്. അപ്പം നിങ്ങൾക്ക് യു വാച്ച് ദി സ്പേസ് ഓർ യു ക്യാൻ വാച്ച് അവർ ഗ്രൂപ്പ്, വാട്സ്ആപ്പ് ഗ്രൂപ്പ് ഓർ ഫേസ്ബുക്ക് പേജ്, യൂട്യൂബ്. യു ക്യാൻ സീ മെനി തിങ്സ് കമ്മിങ് അപ്പ് according to as we get our resources, because our church is we have a lot of resources we can use from our church itself. So we are finding out the right people for the right time. Then you can see many things coming from us. Thank you very much. I will leave the Zoom open for 10 minutes. We can do a chit chat each other because it's a lockdown time. We can't see each other, and you can use this platform to talk each other. Thank you very much. See you all.
Thank you, Sunil. Thank you.
Yeah. നിങ്ങൾ സുഖമായിരിക്കുന്നോ?
കുഴപ്പമൊന്നുമില്ല. നല്ല വെതർ ആയതുകൊണ്ട് വെളിയിലിരിക്കുമായിരുന്നു.
വിൽസച്ചാൻ പോയെന്ന് തോന്നുന്നു. എന്തുകൊണ്ട്?
സുഖം.
നമുക്ക് അടുത്ത ഒരു സെഷനോടെ വെക്കാം. മിസ്സായ ടോപ്പിക് വെച്ചിട്ട് നമുക്ക്
ആക്ച്വലി ഇപ്പം എല്ലാവരും പോകുന്നതിനപ്പുറം വേണമെന്ന് അടുത്ത സെഷനെ പറ്റി ആർക്കെങ്കിലും പ്ലാനോ എന്തെങ്കിലും ഉണ്ടെ പറയാമായിരുന്നു, ചോദിക്കാമായിരുന്നു.
അത് ചോദിക്കാൻ മറന്നു. നമുക്ക് അടുത്ത ഒരു ഇൻട്രസ്റ്റിംഗ് ടോപ്പിക്കായിട്ട് വരാം അല്ലെ?
നമ്മുടെ ഒരു പള്ളിയിലെ സഭയിലെ ഒരു മ്യൂസീഷ്യനാണ്, നമ്മുടെ യങ് മ്യൂസീഷ്യനാണ് ഈ ശ്രേയ അന്ന എന്നും പറഞ്ഞ് നമ്മുടെ പള്ളിയിലെ പല പരിപാടികൾക്കൊക്കെ പാടുകയൊക്കെ ചെയ്യുന്നതാണ്. പരുമല പള്ളിയിൽ എസ്പെഷ്യലി പല പ്രോഗ്രാമിനോട് പാടിയിട്ടുണ്ട്. വേണമെന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ നമുക്ക് അവളെ കൊണ്ടൊരു സൂം മ്യൂസിക്കൽ പ്രോഗ്രാം വെക്കാൻ ഞാൻ ചോദിക്കാം. ഇഫ് എവരിബഡി അഗ്രീസ്.
നമ്മൾ ചോദിക്കാം, നമുക്ക് അതൊരു ദിവസം വെക്കാം. നമുക്ക് സൂം അല്ലാതെ നമുക്ക് വേണമെങ്കിൽ യൂട്യൂബിൽ ലൈവ് ഇടാം. അപ്പൊ സൂമിൽ വെച്ച് കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ ഡിസ്റ്റർബൻസ് വരുമല്ലോ. അങ്കിൾ ചോദിച്ചിട്ട് പറ ഒരു ഡേറ്റ്. നമ്മുടെ ഭദ്രാസന ദിനം വരുന്നുണ്ട് അടുത്ത മാസം. അങ്ങനെ ഉണ്ടെങ്കിൽ നമ്മളൊരു സജഷനാണ്. അങ്ങനെ ഉണ്ടെങ്കിൽ നമുക്ക് അടുത്ത മാസം ആ ദിവസം ചെയ്യുകയോ അവൈലബിലിറ്റി അനുസരിച്ച് എപ്പോഴാണ്.
അതെ, നമുക്കും മാക്സിമം ഓഡിയൻസ് ഉള്ളത് നല്ലതായിരിക്കും. അവർ വളരെ പ്രൊഫഷണൽ ആയിട്ട് ചെയ്യുന്ന ആളുകളാണ്. അവരുടെ പേരൻസും ഒക്കെ ഇൻവോൾവ് ആയിട്ട്. സോ അവള് നമ്മുടെ MP ജോർജ് അച്ഛൻ്റെ കൂടെ ശ്രുതിയിൽ പഠിച്ചതാണ് വളരെ നാള് ഈ മ്യൂസിക്. സോ